Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This me and peace out to the rest of you. You know who it ain't who it is. It ain't your boy, it is your man. Blackest hearted, blackest minded on social media, signing black in and shining again, asking you to hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. So, that being said, you can see a cartoon in front of you now. Many of you have seen this before. You can see him, her, and the platform on which she sits. Mediocre tutorials and reviews, known also by the acronym MTR, read some comments about this. MTR, it's commendable to say that we mention introspect and take accountability. And that means that you're not being selfish and you're not being a narcissist. And that you don't expect others to lower their standards. This is very manly of you. The underlying issue, though, is first the under-analysis of what the platform on which she sits means in the first place. MTR, you're not the only one, male or female, to underanalyze the meaning of the platform itself. Because it's drawn so plainly with no symbolism clearly depicted on it that we wouldn't stop to think about it. But it's just your video that I saw that first analyzed it. Meaning your video was the first one I saw that analyzed the cartoon. Most of us understand the relationship between the whole meme and real life, but we don't know what compromises were made. And we don't know what comprises that platform in the first place on which she sits in judgment of him. You see, there's a reason that she's sitting on the platform in regular clothing and instead of walking up a flight of stairs wearing work or formal clothes. The platform, the pedestal on which she sits, represents partially her own accomplishments, the legitimate ones that she earned rightfully so. However, that's only one of three parts. That platform also represents the permission of the one who is missing from that cartoon in the first place, an external force that's governed too much in our lives, which many of us want to deny, dismiss, and exonerate as though he, in their own words used to describe us, didn't do nothing. A lot of us, especially in this space, want to say, forget what they did, what are we going to do? And I'm telling you, I know how they think, I've spied on them. They have it in their minds that there's a subconscious programming that when we start doing well, they will move in as an external force and mess things up. And this is one of those. When she works to get ahead, she is allowed less than what she has earned. So she's still being oppressed. But she's allowed more of what she has earned than the heterosexual black man. So the frustration that black American women feel when they see their options is a real frustration because it's engineered in the first damn place. It also represents something else too, and that is nothing more than her socialization and the resulting exaggerated standards by which she assesses him out of the gate. She's sitting on a platform comprised of only 1/3 less than what she has earned. Another third of which she simply assumed about a man's intrinsic negative value by default. And the last third consisting of corporate zaddy's permission and artificial elevation of her just for the express purpose of the conversation we see to begin with going exactly the way the cartoonist accurately wrote the conversation. Granted, most men wouldn't say meet me down here though, but let me tell you how the conversation went at first in real life before the cartoon. At first it was, why do you date outside of our race? Why do you approach other women and then you wait for me to approach you? It wasn't him asking her that question. When a man answers back, she was with me from jump when I didn't have anything. She says, why don't you get one of us now that you have something? Or she says, what do you have that I don't already? So underneath all of this in the cartoon is the assumption of the negative sexual value of penis and the intention behind the external force that would accuse me of hate speech if I named them specifically when it set this thing up and constructed the platform to begin with. MTR, you said that although many of us would say that if he's a thug, she'd have jumped down to meet him. In reality, many women up there wouldn't do so, but there are many that would. And men who witnessed this from many women around them were wrong for hanging around such hood boogers. Now, you pointed this out. I generally agree, but the fact is that plenty of our sisters from suburbs not only want thuggo, shout out to Black Ram like you extended, but will explain it away more cleverly and articulately than Boom Shika or Bonquisha ever would, who you referred to as the hood boogers. Neither one really explains it that well for their age in comparison to how they explain everything else about which they can talk incessantly to our irritation. the hood booger, or the sophister ratchet. But shuck that fit. See, even the ones who may not want thuggo would not differentiate between the non-thuggos and the actual socially awkward lames. You think about it. I don't like to use celebrities and fictitious characters except when necessary. And in this case, it is necessary so people know exactly what I mean, because we don't have generic terms understood by all of the English-speaking world or even all of English-speaking America to designate what I mean, so I have to use these fictitious characters. Fresh Prince wasn't the lame guy in the series, and Carlton was only somewhat socially awkward outside of his element, but Pepper from Salt and Pepper wanted only the guys that the Fresh Prince must have left behind in West Philly, and so she got Tretch, and he hit her, and she cheated on him with someone else and told this someone else, not Tretch, to push it good. Now, I said a long time ago, the black folks' problem is looking at celebrities as examples instead of merely learning lessons from them that we could have used to help us out in our real lives. But in many cases, this is a case in which the lady celebrities didn't even learn lessons while looking at the regular masses, but rather copied the negative lessons, copied the negative behaviors from the masses, and it wasn't the men doing it. So when you comment on the red pill knowledge men must have in the West, I rock with it. And I don't rock with it when she starts talking about what, forget about her, meaning the lady in the cartoon. I don't rock with it even when you or anyone else starts talking about what men must do to climb to their stations. Yes, I'm one-sided, and I'm aware of that. And I remain one-sided because of what C. Boogie exposed us to unintentionally, and frankly, what my own brother and what ladies in my life and my family unintentionally showed me over time. This is a genetic war. This is not a reproductive competition or negotiation, but it is a war, and it is very one-sided. Now, this is a Western war. This isn't a war where I live. It's a war there where you live. And it is one-sided because only one side even knows it's a war and carries it out like a war, and that side is not us. We deceive to impress her because she demands it. She's already impressed us. She deceives to get us to work against our own interests by lying about what contains our own interest in the first place, such as pretending to have no libido in her early teens, lying about what she really likes in men, lying about how individually she judges men, as opposed to how collectively she judges. Ultimately, even paternity fraud. No one really believes all of them do this, and I'm not the only man who refuses to blame the innocent ones who don't do these things, am I? There are bound to be other men that won't blame the innocent. But still, MTR, you said that men who know multiple women that would jump down from the elevation for thuggo or low-value men who are hanging around the wrong women. You're right that if a man rocks with them, he's got issues to sort out, unless he really doesn't know any difference, and that's unlikely in adulthood because of the exposure that's bound to come. But by the same token, just knowing them isn't the issue. And in high school and youth, most of us have to just know them at least through school. That's something altogether different. There are men who know many women like that, but they don't rock with them. There are environments in which a man can only not hang out with him by not hanging out with ladies in general. There are environments like that even for some adult men. This is more serious than we think. Many black men date non-black women and marry them. As much as I hope for their sake they leave alone specifically Becky and Amber, because they know that there are black women that aren't going to sacrifice for thugs and low-life men. But those sisters are taken even if they're moderately attractive blood. Believe that. This issue is real. It's not good women that can't find good men when they're young and in shape. Good dudes are having trouble finding decent women even when they drop the requirements for youth in good shapes. The issue about which men are speaking is still real. Outside of the race, black men have options, black women don't. Inside the black West, black women have the options. They just accept the realistic options at any age. What I mean is black men will accept the realistic options at any age. But black women don't accept the realistic. They will demand and insist on whatever should be beyond them and is out of their reach, even if it is only out of their reach because it's so rare or doesn't exist. If more men just did what you recommend and become high value as we think of it, the way black America and black Canada is now, all that would happen would be that Western black women and even Western white women would do this to their men. Demand superhuman men, literally superhuman and invincible, godlike, not subject to illness, disabilities, poverty, or death. The only thing that can teach them to apply logic to their own standards is men refusing to meet some of these standards and instead saying at some point, now this is getting unreasonable, I won't even try to be or do or have that, and you should have met those same standards if you would judge us by them. I've never heard a enough men telling us men to do that. This is new for me. I just recently began to hear it, and I'm one of maybe two I've heard say this. You also said that we must be high value even if it means we have to work at it and she just gets to look the part. Your answer for this was, life is just unfair sometimes. That's it? No. See, we men make certain things fair, maybe even to our advantage. Many animals had advantages over us, and we used fire and weapons to first even the odds, then added tools like cages and tranquilizers and traps to even switch the odds to our favor. Now the odds that favor them unfairly favor us unfairly or fairly. Now we run this globe and the other species don't, even the intelligent species like the dolphins and chimps with a high intelligence and the chimps' opposable thumbs. They can't run this globe like us, and they're 10 times stronger on a bad day. You'll never see a gorilla put a man in a cage, and I actually don't want to keep them in cages either, but that's beside the point. You get the idea. So why, when it comes to not only women, but the worst cultural demographic in the world of women, the wicked witches of the West, of whom the black ones are artificially elevated financially above the heterosexual male counterparts, do you so willingly accept that it's unfair? More so, why should we listeners accept this? We can take accountability. You showed that by taking accountability on our behalf for things that we men don't even do or control except maybe unknowingly and unwittingly. We men take accountability for letting ourselves be deceived when we had no way of knowing about this deception until after it was complete. I mean, without the internet, social media, and people being honest about it, painfully, brutally honest about what they've been through, we wouldn't know about these deceptions. So if anything, we men and women alike made strides in DNA technology, and this was needed for us to discover a lot of this deception, but we still take accountability for the deception that was done to us, not by us. And I'll assume that we both made strides in technology that allowed not only the internet, but social media. My assumption is both genders did this. I don't have the list in front of me of every development that made it possible. The question is, did either of these developments expose the games men play, or did they expose the games women play? Did either of them shed light on how many men play them or how few women did? No, they surprised both of us with the opposites. How few men could even get away with these games and how many women played them. That's what we got surprised by. Men cheat, they wind up having to tell their wives they got outside kids, or they got to hide and let the kids starve because the side chick's going to tell and rat. See, I grew up before the internet, let alone social media. So I heard what women said and what they had us men believing about ourselves, and even what they had us black men believing about ourselves, like we were just prone to abandon kids we conceived. Someone once said that my dad was in my brother's life and my life because he's light-skinned, and that was why my brother and I took the small kids so well and they liked us, as if to say that neither of us were really black men or even just black males, because if we were, we would have no paternal instincts. He believed this mess too. This was before the net of social media. Now we can find the CDC knows that in actuality, we and Latino men are the most involved dads, and that among black men, 52% of us are single and without children at all. And that's among black adult men, not kids, not minors. Apparently only 8% of black adult men are uninvolved with the kids, but I got doubts I'm even remembering that number correctly. So if anyone in the audience remembers the correct percentage of black men uninvolved with the kids, please feel free to correct me in the comments. But this is to say, MTR, that yes, when you go in on overweight sisters who feel they deserve the finest feather mucker with a good job and no wife already or kids, we men will gladly support you putting her in her place. She's asking for too much in exchange for too little. Many Western white women are the exact same, demanding body positivity for themselves and a right to judge men and even require men's muscles for themselves. Oh, hell no. When you start telling men to become high value, we don't have to listen because we already heard that, and some of us know what that meant afterwards. You said that when we become high value, better women come around. No, they don't necessarily come around, sir. And we know because we saw these same ones when we had less money and or muscle, and they complained to us in their friend zones about what wasn't available that they wanted. Then when we got the muscles and or money, they would just be upset that we didn't approach them. They didn't come around, they sat back and waited for us to come to them. These were the same ones that told us they got up and went for the things they wanted in life, and they weren't the submissive types. Same ones in corporate America. I get up and go for it. I see what I want and I go for it. Okay, yeah, but you've been staring at this dude to our left that's by himself. You gonna get up and go for that? So we're supposed to self-improve for the exact same woman who holds feminist views and prides herself on being assertive and not submissive or even cooperative, and promotes gender equality in speech at least, and everything until it's time to actually be equal. Until it's time to approach a man or pay a bill or see what the noise is downstairs. This is exactly what men are sick of. It's not the equality that they're seeking, it is the inequality and the special status by virtue of nothing that they've done to earn it. Because when a man doesn't pay a bill or check out the noises, it's because he heard women say that they don't need us for that. But when she doesn't pay the bill or approach the guy she likes to check out the noise downstairs, it's after saying she can do these things even better than we can. Men's confusion is the fault of not all women, but it is the fault of the typical Western lady, even the ones who don't mean any harm, for what they say before they turn around and do something completely differently. Women's confusion about men is not our fault, because we don't confuse them about us and what we want. We actually make it too simple. And then they turn and overestimate our simplicity later on in life and forget that we still learn in adulthood. Then they get upset when the men they didn't want in their attractive and highly fertile years won't accept them in their decline. That's really what it comes down to. I will agree that, frankly, when you talk about the most substantial topics like financial planning or the purpose, the audience dwindles. I know. I consider my channel a religious channel. I simply say Islam in a title and the views go down to 100 if I'm lucky. But there are solutions and even preventions in Islam for our ills. The more I explain that to prove my case, the less views I'll get to start with. So I tell my audience, do the research, you'll find it. Honestly, when I come across videos about investing or financial planning, I can't benefit that much because I don't make that much to invest. I have to simply work and save, so I am forced to be a part of that same problem and pattern. But if I hear about how to save or not lose money or how to get more for my money and spend more wisely, I listen. Many others don't, though, because in the end, neither one is about, actually, both of them are about substance, which you talk about. The solution that I present, Islam, is actually about substance and not just spirituality. However, there's also a logical reason for that. Though I would recommend to black men to listen to these substantial topics as well, aside from just how the broads are doing us wrong. But see, in other parts of the world, men don't make as much money. Matter of fact, when we factor in the populations and exchange rates between currencies, black Western men tend to make more than most men globally do. Black Western men tend to make more money than even non-Western white men in many cases, like Eastern Europeans. Still, these men in Malaysia that make less, or these men in Indonesia who make less, or these men in Cambodia who make less, don't have to be disrespected by the ones they'd like to marry so much, or the ones they have married, and belittled by them. If he's not her type, she and he will just leave each other alone, and she won't trip on another woman for finding him her type and validating him sexually, be it through marriage or fornication. What will happen, though, is that if they get together, he's the man. He must pay the cost, but he must be the boss. And also, if he must build up to a more comfortable level, she will likely be there helping him to earn and save to get to that. We know dodgam fothermucking well, the Western woman, white or black, even many who don't mean any harm, aren't going to do that, but they will not take on the financial burdens, and they will refuse to cooperate, let alone submit. Men around the world who make less than us don't get the crap from their women as readily as we do. I live abroad. I see it myself. Before I got married, happily married, I sat with local men to get their reactions to some of the things Western men deal with. And unanimously, they were not only against these things, but they were surprised that anyone could do these things to men and keep their husbands. The surprise was the constant among them. Our situation is not normal, sir. You are absolutely right that if we don't work and we don't put into an IRA, we get nothing back. But what many Western men with red pill knowledge are against is having to do more for less return, either romantically or sexual and maritally. So outside the West, there's an understanding that men may have to work to get her, but she must work to keep him. In the West, we're expected to do the work to get her, work to keep her, work to maintain her. And she's not to do anything at all just to keep us, just because we like it. Because she'll be socially shamed for it by other women who know she's doing this. Lube up and bend over when he gets home so he can diffuse from work. She wouldn't do that, even to relieve her own libido, even if she's staying at home, because it would relieve his. She can get shamed for that, but she can get support for cheating from her friends. The same ones that'll make fun of her for fixing a man's plate will encourage her to cheat. This is backwards, and if something is unfair to us men, we change it to be either fair or to make it favor us, unless we are simply incapable of it, period. So where you live in that context of listening to women say that they're your equals and can do all you can do and even better, you really shouldn't have to do work she doesn't have to get her and then to keep her. Because she said that she's equal and better than you. If this is the understanding, then you have every right and even a duty to tell men that they don't have to do a damn thing in exchange for which she doesn't have to do anything. So if we must work to get her, and she just has to look good, then she has to work to keep her looks, work to keep us, treat us like the ugly women would treat us if we got with them, if they could get with us, treat us like she would treat, the finer man. And either she submits because we pay the cost to be the boss, or she shares the authority proportionally to how she shares the responsibility. Nobody's telling them this. I didn't even hear you say this. Also, we don't have to tolerate, let alone hypergamy. We don't have to tolerate or even accept hypergamy as their nature anymore, because they don't have to accept our nature. They'll sit up and say, we don't accept the way that you are naturally. Matter of fact, the way you are naturally is flawed. And that includes polygyny. So you pointed out that men who complain about hypergamy are just not competing. We could say the same thing about polygyny for them. Many of us are complaining about it because it doesn't go hand in hand with feminism, sir. We're complaining about hypergamy because it is mutually exclusive to feminism, and yet they're coming to us with both. Only too few of us are telling them that they can't have mutually exclusive standards. Everyone, including old foolish black men, is telling us Western men, especially us black men, to choose between standards that aren't even mutually exclusive to begin with, until some of these Western ladies artificially make them so by simply being lazy and conceited. That's why she can barely be attractive and in fact treat a man she likes as though she likes him and wants to keep him. Instead, if she's attractive, she's going to treat a man decently only when he's attractive to her and her friends. But a man can simply say, no single mothers when I'm not a single father, no fat guts when I'm in shape. And he will be hit up and given a chance by only the single moms while he's childish, and only the big guts when he's not near that. Women's hypergamy isn't really necessary to drive improvement by men, especially if these women are as capable as men like they keep saying. Now, if they're not as capable, then maybe they have to be hypergamous for the sake of the greater good. But then again, that means that feminism isn't capable. We're in this flux, not because of hypergamy as it was done historically, but because Western women, including black Western women, exaggerated the hypergamy and then combined it with feminism all the time, despite the two actually being mutually exclusive by nature, while they took things that weren't mutually exclusive by default and made them such just to keep us down. We men were too stupid to think about this and then check them on it. You want us to take accountability? There, I just did it on behalf of all of us. You're welcome. If we need to improve, and they don't, then the first thing we need to improve on is our strategies for dealing with the opposite gender in the West, as we naturally must, until we can leave, of course. Because more of them than not are at war with us to take the same resources for which you told us we must work hard from men they don't want, don't respect, and don't even like, actually dislike, so as to give them to the men who don't have to work for these same resources, and then give them the draws on top of that, so as to use the men from whom they take the resources to raise the children of the men to whom they give resources. That's the ultimate goal of it. It's not the goal of every single individual lady, I'm not saying that, but the ultimate goal of the war they're waging against us is that. Our failure to even think this deeply while they sat and strategized so collectively and unanimously, even before the rise of Western civilization, is our real failure, for which we should take accountability. And even that we must share with older black men who are only selected specifically because they didn't think any more deeply. So then even then we got to share with the older ladies that selected them. So I can't find the blame that we can't share with them. We can be high value, but believe you me, leaving the West will be even more necessary if we all do that to find an equally valuable counterpart once we succeed in that. In reality, it's not overall value by which we're being assessed, but usually merely just money, muscles, and what her girls think anyway. If I actually become a valuable human being beyond these things, why should I or you or any other man that's done this settle for someone who doesn't know that feminism and hypergamy are mutually exclusive? Last thing I'll say is to answer your question. Why should a man respect you if you don't own anything? That's the question you asked. My answer is because she doesn't own anything except what our common enemy gave her just to change her attitude about me in the first place, and you, and him. Whether she worked for it or not. That's why. Why should she respect the one that's playing us both against the middle? If other women can respect good men from amongst them when they have also been crushed by white supremacy in their countries, then so can the Western sister, or she can lose us to the women who still can't. And that's exactly what's begun and what's only growing in scope. We're done competing for women who refuse to compete with other women for us. Don't you deserve to be done with that too, MTR? Nothing I've said is out of hatred. I've learned a lot from your channel. I appreciate that. But mainly what I'm saying here is that I'm going to be one-sided with you or anyone else Because right now, being one-sided actually is the fair thing to do, because the war has been one-sided in the opposite direction all this time, and we're paying for it. To the point that all of us have some ideas that don't serve us because that's how we've been socialized. No, be one-sided, MTR, because that's the right way to be. Thanks a million for your channel. Appreciate that. Thanks to everybody for listening. Black heart, black mind, blackout, assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual male non-select power just because they don't like it.